So hello. I am very excited to start the third episode of the MAD show, and I have a very special guest with us. Who I'm going to introduce very soon to our viewers. But before that, थोड़ा सा बताना चाहता हूँ कि MAD show है क्या. So MAD stands for making a difference, and the idea with this show is कि कभी-कभी आप किसी से बात कोई कॉन्वर्सेशन करते हैं, वो आपका मेंटर हो सकता है या फिर आपका कॉलीग हो सकता है या सिर्फ कोई दोस्त हो सकता है, मे बी इवन अ पेरेंट. एंड वो कोई अपनी लाइफ स्टोरी शेयर करते हैं या कोई इनसाइट शेयर करते हैं आपसे अपने बारे में, एंड अ लाइट बल्ब गोज इन योर हेड कि अरे यार, कुछ चमका, कुछ समझ में आया जो मैं एक्शनेबल है, जिसको मैं अपनी लाइफ में आज यूज कर सकता हूँ. सो मैड शो इज, एंड इट इज एक्शनेबल, प्लस एट द सेम टाइम आपको ये लगता है कि यार ये अगर मैं अपने आप, शायद मुझे सालों लग जाते हैं सीखने में. So MAD show is our effort at Neo Patterns to create such light bulb moments through conversations with people who have achieved great success in their lives about topics जो आज की world के लिए बड़े relevant हैं. And now I want to introduce our guest today, who is going to be talking about such a topic with us and hopefully give our viewers a lot of these light bulb moments. So please welcome Satyajeet Menon, who we lovingly called as Satya. Satya is currently working as the HR head for one of the startups in India which has achieved great success. And HR head का role ये एक startup में नहीं, कई startups में कर चुके हैं जिनको इन्होंने unicorn status तक पहुंचाया है, and at the same time also making them great places to work. And I can vouch for that because I was part of one of those startups, and that's where I know Satya from. But before his startup journey as the HR head, he's worked with companies like GE, Lehman Brothers, Snapdeal, Fidelity. So a lot of good companies in his portfolio. And what makes Satya special for today's topic, which also I'll talk about soon, is that इन्होंने अपना करियर स्टार्ट किया था बाय फ्लाइंग प्लेन्स. तो पहले प्लेन उड़ाए, उसके बाद रिटेल में काम किया, और रिटेल में भी अलग अलग जगह काम किया, और वहां से काम करते करते ये एचआर हेड कैसे बन गए, मतलब ये बड़ी मिस्ट्री है जो किसी को समझ में नहीं आ सकती. बिकॉज इट इज नॉट इजी टू स्विच करियर्स, इट इज नॉट इजी टू कन्विंस समवन कि भाई मैं कुछ और काम भी कर सकता हूँ जो मैं अभी कर रहा हूँ. एंड ही अचीव दिस थ्रू द पावर ऑफ नेटवर्किंग. ही इज अ ग्रेट पीपल पर्सन. ही has the skills to connect with people and network with them, and through his skill he was able to meet the right people and convince them ki bhai, I am fit for these other roles, and that's how he grew in his career. So which brings me to our topic of today, which is networking, and obviously very relevant in today's time. So being an expert, we would love to ask Satya a few questions about networking. एक चीज और सत्या के बारे में, about his personal life. He has a very अगर किसी ने टू ब्यूटीफुल स्टेट्स या टू स्टेट्स मूवी देखी है, उसमें लड़की है नॉर्थ इंडिया से और लड़का है साउथ इंडिया से. इनका साथ उल्टा है, ये साउथ इंडिया से हैं और इनकी वाइफ नॉर्थ इंडिया से हैं. एंड he has a very intelligent 14-year-old son who wants to represent India at the UN. So a lot of smart people in the house, and I'm sure that is going to happen one day. And एक और इंटरेस्टिंग चीज है सत्या के बारे में कि ये रात के भीगे हुए ओट्स अगले दिन खाना चाहते हैं, जो मुझे अभी तक समझ में नहीं आया. मे बी बिफोर वी स्टार्ट टॉकिंग अबाउट नेटवर्किंग, व्हाई डोंट यू टेल अस अबाउट द ओट्स, एंड देन we can start with networking.
Yeah, I mean, just first of all, thanks Manu. क्या मतलब solid introduction दिया है. I didn't know I had done so many things that I could take back with me, but this is really awesome to be here on the show. हाँ, मेरा रिश्ता ओवरनाइट ओट्स से तब शुरू हुआ था जब I started running out of options, क्योंकि everything we have in our Indian diet is pretty much मतलब घी होता है, उसमें कुछ ना कुछ होता ही रहता है. So you tend to gravitate towards those things, and my father used to say, जो मुंह के लिए अच्छा है वो पेट के लिए अच्छा नहीं. So but somebody introduced me to the concept of cold oats. Usually I used to have garam, like बचपन में मैं garam oats खाता.
मैंने भी गरम ही खाए हैं.
and मुझे पता ही नहीं था कि ऐसा एक concept है. So many years ago somebody introduced me to it, and I just loved the first, like, the dish that I had the next morning, and it reminds me of kheer to a great extent. तो एक excuse भी बन गया कि there is something that you can have that is nutritious, plus it gives you the kick of what a दूध का खीर gives you. और and that's stuck with me ever since. तो मैं रात को सोता हूँ और सुबह उठता हूँ ये hope और expectation लेके कि I'll have something really good to have. So that's the trivia behind.
That's actually, that is a very interesting thing for me to learn. मतलब I really want to have it now. The only problem is कि वो overnight नहीं हो सकते अगर अभी जाके खाऊंगा. Anyway, so as I was telling our viewers that you moved up in career through through opportunities that you got through networking, and from flying planes to being the HR head. So tell me something. Were you always naturally inclined to meeting people and networking?
No, Manu. Honestly, I think when I started off as an acute introvert actually,
Okay.
and there were few reasons behind it, because I went to a hostel or a boarding school, a convent, oriented boarding school at a very young age, at the age of 6. और उस समय मतलब survival was the key, because you didn't have parents around you. There was no social support structure that you can call. तो जो भी मतलब आपके आसपास था, that was your support structure. You had to sort of manage with the resources and people that were around you. So you have to adjust. वो adaptation to that ecosystem करना बहुत जरूरी है. So before being a human being, I started to have animal instincts itself from there, because the whole concept was about just somehow making sure you survived that day. But life became a lot more simpler uske baad. I also realized that if by being to yourself and not being out there, a lot of my friends I would see at that time struggle, क्योंकि वो चुप होते थे तो उनसे मिलने कोई नहीं आता था, और and they would lose out on good opportunities, which I was sports में हो या किसी में भी हो. So I had to make that adjustment consciously. But it was not easy. Like, it was not just because my boarding school gaya, my behavior changed, because even when I moved out of school and into college, I was not I wouldn't say कि मैं talkative नहीं था. I could talk, I had decent communication skills, but it was just that when you would put me in front of many people, it was always a starting problem, and I was never so I was popularly known as No Show Satya also. Like, friends and random people would make plans, and I would, get behind that plan, but last minute I would chicken out and just not show up. So एक image सा ऐसा बन गया कि अगर if you invite, Satya, chances are he will say okay the first time, but then back out the last time. I must admit I do that sometimes even today. And my work actually pushed me to becoming a more social person. Maybe because I was in HR, by virtue of my role and all of that, उसके वजह से I could, I had no option but to meet as many people, क्योंकि अगर मुझे अपने area में काम निकलवाना है, if I have to get stuff done, then the only way out is to, keep talking to people, understand how they're going, their experiences. And that somehow changed me also as an individual. So it was not as though I was born an extrovert. I was born being this, pro-social, pro-networking person. That's not something that I was born with. So I had to work hard and adapt and use the limited things that were around me and make the most out of it. So ऐसा रहा है मेरा कुछ.
So that's actually surprising for me to know. मतलब मैंने जो देखा है और how I have seen you operate, मैंने नहीं सोचा था कि आप you started off as an introverted person, or maybe आपकी core personality ऐसी है. But the biggest takeaway for me and our viewers is that कि भाई कोई जरूरी मतलब अगर someone who has achieved so much success through this skill, even they did not start out naturally inclined to have it. So it is something that can definitely be developed, and I think that's a very encouraging sign for all of us. So अपन नेटवर्किंग की बात कर रहे हैं, और दुनिया में बहुत चेंजेस आए हैं ओवर द लास्ट फ्यू इयर्स, टेक्नोलॉजी वाइज 8-10 साल में लैंडस्केप एकदम बदल गया है. लास्ट 3 years द वर्ल्ड हैज कंप्लीटली switched because of COVID. So networking, how has it changed in the last few years, and आजकल के like networking etiquettes क्या है?
See, I think you and I will relate to it a lot more because हमने जो बचपन हमने निकाला है. I mean, I'm assuming we are all the 80s and 90s kids.
Right.
Unfortunately. And yeah, but we also have like हमारे पास एक बहुत unique distinction है, like to be able to see that transition from a black and white television to Doordarshan to cable.
The plasma, yeah.
It's crazy, right? I mean, we have seen that whole thing. I mean, I tell my son even today कि अगर मतलब आजकल तुम्हारे पास तुम्हें जो दिख रहा है, मतलब I think innovation in electronics is basically somewhat stagnated. Phones are more or less the same. Everything is more or less the same now. So we are still waiting for the next big thing. But जब उससे पहले का जितना भी मतलब change we've seen has been phenomenal. And I think the same thing goes with how we have met people socially also. So for example, मेरे टाइम पे पहले हम संडे के दिन 4-5 बजे ऑटो में बैठ के या बस में बैठ के या ट्रेन में बैठ के, एटलीस्ट आई रिमेंबर माय बॉम्बे डेज, वी यूज्ड टू गो विजिट आवर रिलेटिव्स एंड फ्रेंड्स एंड ऑल ऑफ दैट स्टफ. सो वो ट्रिप जो है वो काफी वी यूज्ड टू लुक फॉरवर्ड टू, और लेट्स से दैट फॉर एग्जांपल किसी भी गली के नुक्कड़ में, any corner of the street, 4-5 friends would gather and you would talk. And the idea those days was not really to achieve anything. The idea those days was to really have fun, and मतलब जरूरतें उस समय बहुत limited.
Right.
Even if you had the aspiration, you didn't have the needs to get there. But you had a lot of friends, and you would just hang out with them and have a lot of fun. And that network would then expand, and it would enter into sports, it would enter into like a bunch of things. And then over time, it started to change. Like people started meeting for a purpose.
Right.
है ना? So किसी को अगर कुछ बेचना था तो that there was a specific event for that. किसी को अगर focus groups में मिलने थे कुछ discuss करने के लिए, there was something like that. किसी को अगर job चाहिए था तो there were job fairs and all these kinds of things. Right? Slowly the transition started to happen from meet to meet for sake of meeting to towards meeting towards a like agenda. There was a reason behind why you wanted to meet. And today it's become more result oriented. Like for example, if I look at some of the modes, like पहले meetups होते थे, meetings होते थे, seminar होते थे, ये सब होता था. Today it's branched out into multiple things. Of course you have the traditional setup of physical meetings where you come. But COVID and pandemic के बाद we had to start thinking creatively कि हम और कैसे मिल सकते हैं. How can we not just meet, but how can we do things virtually and collaborate also. And then so you had a lot of these Twitter spaces, and you had clubhouses and a lot of other things where random people would come together and discuss about several things. So I think वो एक radical shift we have seen there happening. But the objective कि आजकल हम मीट इसलिए करते हैं क्योंकि हमें कुछ फोकस रिजल्ट हमें आउटकम्स चाहिए उसको लेके. पहले वो उतना फोकस नहीं था. Today sales teams are looking at doing that because they want maximum outreach so that they can get maximum conversion. ऐसे तरह अलग अलग examples हैं. But what that has done is, because of the way people are networking today, उसमें referrals भी बढ़ते हैं. जैसे for example, if you go to a meetup and you like something, तो ये highly likely है कि आप 10 लोगों को और बताओगे कि पता है वहां जाना, उसमें बहुत सही टॉपिक्स डिस्कस होते हैं. उसी टाइप के फोरम में फ्लैग भी मिलता है. फॉर एग्जांपल, इफ यू फील दैट some networking event is only for chai pakoda and all that stuff, and there is no purpose and thing, you'll get that also. So that that's changed from relationship to purpose to results. So there is that transition that has happened and people have used multiple modes to do that, which we have spoken of. So ऐसे मुझे लगता है that's how the world has changed after the pandemic, as we know.
Okay, I think some really good insights, and want to just quickly. So one takeaway जो मेरा इसमें था is that हम लोग नेटवर्क शुरू से कर रहे हैं, बच्चों की तरह भी कर रहे हैं, हमें पता ही नहीं है कि हम नेटवर्क कर रहे हैं. तो जो देख रहे हैं इसको, आई थिंक द टेक अवे इज कि भाई आप ऑलरेडी करते हो ये सब चीजें, आपने करी हैं बचपन में मोस्ट लाइकली. सो बस वो आजकल स्ट्रक्चर्ड हो गई है, रिजल्ट ओरिएंटेड हो गई है, एंड ऑब्वियसली विद टेक्नोलॉजी expanded to basically no geographical boundaries. So great insight, Satya. Now मैंने एटलीस्ट अपने करियर में ऑब्जर्व किया है, मुझे भी काम करते हुए 20 साल हो गए हैं, एंड कि बहुत लोग जो कंपनी में होते हैं, ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में होते हैं, उसमें से somehow I've found कि करियर पाथ में जो सक्सेस मिलती है उसका काफी कोरिलेशन होता है कि आप अपनी कंपनी में कैसे नेटवर्क कर पाते हैं, कैसे अलग अलग लोगों से अपने जॉब से रिलेटेड विद इन द सेम ऑर्गेनाइजेशन कनेक्ट कर पाते हैं और कैसे उनको साथ लेके चल पाते हैं. So would love to hear from you ki what are your thoughts and tips on how to network within the organization that you work?
So that's a very, very important question. Okay, and I think iska interpretation na kai different perspectives milenge aapko iska. So maybe what I'm saying may have been effective for me. तो हर एक का अपना अपना एक्सपीरियंस है. जहां तक अब देखो मेरे पास the way you ran through my career in brief as we were talking, right? And you would see that there was no common linkage between the two. I was flying planes and then suddenly I started selling things, and then suddenly I started looking at people function. So I've done like these 2-3 things, and then and there are so many others that I can't remember off my head right now, but I think when you join an organization, सबसे बड़ा transition ये होता है कि that feeling of me and I, वो ना एकदम से convert होके वो us and we हो जाता है वो. So when you join an organization, if we are thinking that my success will automatically translates into everybody's success, it's true to a certain extent, but it is the team that drives results also.
Absolutely.
और कई लोग मुझे आपके पूछते हैं कि यार सत्या, मैं इतना रगड़ता हूँ यार, मतलब I grind like all these years, I've been working so hard, but I mean लगता है यहाँ पे मस्का मार के और बटर मार के काम निकल जाएगा, and to be fair, although as an HR person I can't tell them कि ये गलत है, I think it is right also to a certain extent, but let me try and rephrase this as a little different.
Okay, sure.
So ये बहुत जरूरी है कि अपना कर्म करो तो फल मिलता है, right? And हम लोग सब वही करने आते हैं किसी कंपनी में भी, and but there is another angle to it that supports the work that you do, and that is relationships.
Right.
And जब हम कल्चर और कल्चर की बात करते रहते हैं तो वो कल्चर का मतलब ये नहीं है कि सिर्फ और सिर्फ काम है. काम के साथ a very good support or a partner is how can you get other people to work with you and help you? How can you gain knowledge जहाँ पे सबको फायदा हो? All those things form part of this whole networking thing in a company. So काम करना important है. I think for all viewers who are listening into this, it is very important. Like that is a fundamental thing. Your skill defines everything. But along with your skill, here are some things that you could also look at, where you will feel कि अरे यार मैं सिर्फ काम कर रहा हूँ लेकिन कुछ नहीं हो रहा. तो वो क्या चीजें? सबसे पहले जब आप किसी भी इंस्टीट्यूशन या फिर कहीं पे भी आप जाते हो तो आपको एक टेम्पटेशन होता है कि यार एक फैमिली ट्री दिखा दो मुझे. और उस फैमिली ट्री का मतलब ये है, जैसे आप रिश्तेदारों को मिलते हो, यू मीट योर रिलेटिव्स, योर फर्स्ट इंस्टिंक्ट इज अरे वो उसका चाचा का भतीजा का बेटा है, यू ट्राई टू लाइक you are already drawing a mind map of that family.
और जब शादी होती है तब भी करना पड़ता
है ना, and yeah, exactly, and you're looking for, and what are you trying to achieve there? जब आप वो करते हैं तो आप ये सोच रहे हैं कि मुझे commonality कहाँ मिल सकता है, where can I find that sense of similarity there that I can bond with these people.
Yeah.
So either it's, that cousin of yours was working in the same place, or maybe they live in the same locality. Kahin na kahin ghum fir ke you find like there is some connection there. That is your first step to feeling comfortable. कि हाँ मैं मतलब your starting trouble जो बोलता है ना, वो starting trouble हट गया क्योंकि for example the person lives in the next lane and is your distant cousin. So similarly that the org structure in a company is very important. So
Yeah.
as a new employee who joins, and this is any organization, you can have 2 years of experience, you can have 20 years of experience, it doesn't matter. Knowing about the people in a company is the first step towards networking. And you can always find that online. आप किसी से पूछ सकते हो, आपके HR team members होंगे या फिर आपके team leaders होंगे, managers होंगे, they will provide that.
Right.
What you should do with that, I feel, is that आप टारगेट करो कि वो कौन से लोग हैं उस ऑर्ग चार्ट में जो आपके रोल, फंक्शन और स्किल को सक्सेसफुल बना सकते हैं. And you sort of like ring fence and earmark those people. Now, I also want to suggest to the people who are leaders, who are talent magnets, जिसके वजह से लोग आपके कंपनी में ज्वाइन कर रहे हैं, राइट? ये जो लोग हैं, जो चाहे वो इनएक्सपीरियंस्ड हो या फ्रेश आउट ऑफ कॉलेज हो या जो भी हो, anybody who's new and joining the company, they will want to meet you. So as leaders, it is very important that we break that barrier. खाली दरवाजा अपने ऑफिस का दरवाजा खोलने से ओपन डोर नहीं होता, है ना? You have to step out of that zone of yours and try and meet people too. And people will want to meet you also because they are looking at role models, और leaders सारे उन कंपनियों में role models ही होते हैं. वो आपको ऑब्जर्व करेंगे और फिर आपके स्टाइल्स को पिकअप करेंगे. So it's important that when they reach you, you are also receptive to that. So it works both ways. And as somebody who's joined a company, pick out who those people are, and then first 1 month जहाँ पे कुछ ज्यादा कुछ होता नहीं है, मतलब ट्रेनिंग ही होती है, use maybe an hour or two every day to meet somebody new, in the company. Because कभी क्या होता है कि any product, right? I mean, of course, जो दिखता है वो बिकता है, which is absolutely true. And I think for all leaders or people who are hiring people, ये बहुत जरूरी होता है कि आप वो चीज दिखाएं जो सच है और वो चीज दिखाएं जो ओरिजिनल और जेन्युइन है. ऐसा ना हो कि आप किसी को हायर कर रहे हो और वो आता है और that's not the real story, right? And right. What better proof of pudding when somebody wants to meet you and know you intimately. So and last thing I want to tell most people in this particular question is gossip करना नेटवर्किंग नहीं होता. Okay, हम लोग कई बार ये सोचते हैं कि यार कंपनी ज्वाइन करूंगा, 4 लोगों से मिलूंगा, वो कुछ बोलेंगे कंपनी के बारे में, that's my impression of the company. No, that is gossip, and gossip is not necessarily factual, right? So if you're networking, you're going with a sole purpose today of achieving your purpose, your objective जो भी है, and then you have to then if you're able to drive results out of that, great. So I think those are the few things that I would look at.
I think I love the idea about looking at an org chart, and I have also changed many organizations in my career, but I think ये बहुत अच्छा suggestion है, and I think it will also give structure to people who find it difficult to do it otherwise. And again, I also like the fact कि आपने बोला leaders को कि they should have an open door, because right, I completely agree. अगर वो open नहीं होंगे तो ये two-way forum कैसे बनेगा? तो आजकल remote working is obviously very common. The world, as we have talked about many times, कि COVID के बाद तो चीजें flip हो गई हैं. तो अब ऐसी सिचुएशन में जब मैंने सपोज एक नई ऑर्गेनाइजेशन ज्वाइन करी, मैं नया हूँ, पर मेरे कॉलीग्स भी आसपास नहीं है, मे बी दे आर इन डिफरेंट सिटीज, मे बी दे आर इन डिफरेंट पार्ट्स ऑफ द वर्ल्ड. तो इस सिनेरियो में कुछ आप इनसाइट शेयर करिए जो हाउ कैन पीपल नेटवर्क इन दैट टाइप ऑफ अ वर्किंग सिचुएशन.
या लाइक आई थिंक मतलब पैंडेमिक ने तो हमें और कुछ सिखाया हो ना सिखाया हो, बट हाउ टू कम्युनिकेट जरूर सिखा दिया है. you know,
Right.
and हम सोच जिनको भी लगता था कि उनकी अंग्रेजी स्ट्रांग है या फिर उनका कम्युनिकेशन स्ट्रांग है, they just had to, you know, be part of the pandemic to realize
Right.
कि you can have very strong communication skills or English speaking skills, but you are basically guessing all the time कि सामने वाले को समझ में आया कि नहीं आया होगा.
Right.
You know, thank God for, you know, like a Zoom call or, you know, Microsoft Teams or Hangouts or whatever it is, that there is a face that you can put to the name. Which brings
Right.
me to my first point. Ki if you're meeting somebody for the first time, or if you're trying to solve a very complex problem and you need to discuss it, देखो रैंडम फोन कॉल ठीक है, लाइक यू नो यू आप
Right.
किसी को
Right.
फोन कर रहे हो, बट ये आप किसी को जानने की कोशिश कर रहे हो,
Right.
you are
Right.
trying to know somebody or that person is trying to know you, or you're trying to influence someone, like it requires face to face hand gestures, facial expressions to see all of that. The first step is you have to switch on your video. Okay.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely. बिल्कुल.
I feel that a lot of people shy away from it क्योंकि उनको शायद अपने सराउंडिंग्स पे ज्यादा कॉन्फिडेंस नहीं है, वो बैकग्राउंड पे क्या होगा पता नहीं है, बहुत सारा हल्ला शोर होगा. सो आई वुड से दैट ऐसे कोई स्पेशल मोमेंट्स जहाँ पे आपको नेटवर्किंग करने होता है, choose a setting which is maybe not in these places and look at a quieter
Right.
setting outside.
Okay. Okay.
Because वो एक सबसे बड़ा hurdle ये होता है कि जहाँ पे मैं बैठा हूँ, is that a place that is conducive to networking? So
Right.
select that place and make sure that the video is on. I think the second important thing is कि अगर आपको networking पहली बार आप कर रहे हो, और for example, let's say you're on a video call for the first time and networking for the first time, if you want to feel little less nervous,
Right.
it always helps कि उस इंसान के साथ आप पहले किसी फोन कॉल पे या कोई टेक्स्ट एक्सचेंज किया हो या कोई ईमेल एक्सचेंज किया हो, you break the barrier of that relationship through words before you actually show the face, because then you know
Right.
it's like I don't know, Manu, if you've had this experience, but I used to have pen friends way back. I don't know if generations today would know that or not, but pen friends were strangers who you would write to for years and you would never see the face of these people.
Right.
You know, and because you would write to them, eventually you would meet at some time.
Yes. Yes.
And when you would meet, you would feel so much more comfortable क्योंकि आपने वो जो initial जो relationship के जो barriers होते हैं वो आपने break किया और you've directly come to meet someone. Similarly, in a networking, if you're networking with one person or multiple people, if you can, you know, maybe you create a WhatsApp group, you know, of people, and then, hey, hi guys, you know, I'm this and that. Sometimes you don't want to show your face, but you're comfortable texting. You know, today's the age and stage where you can make or break relationships via WhatsApp messages, which I think is an unfortunate thing, but that's the way the world is today.
Yeah.
So I would think that the second thing you could do is actually you know, text or call somebody offline and just build relationship before you actually hit like a screen like this.
Okay.
Then you will be more comfortable showing yourself on video. काफी कुछ आपने solve किया हो. तीसरा ये है कि आप देखो प्रॉब्लम शेयर्ड कॉन्टेक्स्ट और शेयरिंग और अंडरस्टैंडिंग द प्रॉब्लम पहले काफी आसान होता था क्योंकि let's say you had a problem, you would call 10 people in the room, discuss the problem and it would be sorted. Today you can't do that because today even if you share a problem, that other person you can't guarantee कि उसको समझ में आया कि नहीं वो problem. So as a networker, whatever you're trying to achieve, that context has to be clearly laid out to a bunch of people if you want to get everybody's attention, right? So for example, if the problem today is that there is 80% rejection of offers that you make to candidates, it is a big problem, and because the market is competitive, so many things could be there. अब मान के चलो आपने एक इवेंट मॉडरेट आप कर रहे हो या फिर आप उसमें पार्टिसिपेंट हो, and this is the subject line, but the subject line is not enough in a networking sort of this thing. You have to share the context कि हम क्यों मिल रहे हैं, इसमें हम क्या क्या डिस्कस करेंगे, ये क्यों इम्पोर्टेंट है, और हम इसमें से what can we take away from a meeting like that. So I think these 2-3 things are really important in a virtual sort of thing, where showing yourself is very important. Making sure that you're able to strike that relationship even before getting into a networking event through other means. And third, obviously, प्रॉब्लम को आप कंटेक्चुअलाइज कीजिए तो लोगों को बहुत अच्छे से दे विल बी मोर रिसेप्टिव एंड पार्टिसिपेट.
हाँ, मुझे एक्चुअली बहुत बहुत अच्छी लगी ये बातें, एंड बिकॉज मैं अपने पर्सनल एक्सपीरियंस से भी रिलेट कर सकता हूँ. ऑब्वियसली कितना कॉमन टर्म है कि इट्स ग्रेट टू पुट अ फेस टू अ नेम, राइट? बिकॉज लोग सालों काम करते हैं और शक्ल नहीं देखते. तो अगर आप रिलेशनशिप ही वीडियो ऑन करके स्टार्ट करें, दैट यू आर ईयर्स अहेड इन टर्म्स ऑफ लाइक योर कनेक्शन विद दैट पर्सन. और मैंने ये देखा है कि मैं अपने पर्सनल एक्सपीरियंस से बोल रहा हूँ कि स्पेशली बहुत सारे जो आजकल के प्रोजेक्ट्स होते हैं, स्पेशली टेक्नोलॉजी कंपनीज में या और ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में भी, the issues are mostly communication problems. So जो आपने बोला ना कि make sure कि put an extra effort in today's circumstances to make sure कि लोगों को पता हो कि मिल किस लिए रहे हैं, because I think those are the things that create that communication barrier. So I love your suggestions there. So coming to people who are introverts, a lot of us don't want to participate in networking events. Again, not naturally inclined to it, but it is obviously an essential skill for today's world. So would love to hear some advice or some tips from you about how introverts can network.
So being an introvert myself, and today's world is that it has strangely become one, and you can see that through news channels or through different shows and all of that stuff. Everybody likes to hear the sound of their own voice.
Right.
So my first suggestion to people is that a networker, a good networker, need not necessarily be somebody who speaks a lot.
Okay.
You can achieve and accomplish a lot just by listening also. Okay? But listening का मतलब ये नहीं है कि आपका ध्यान कहीं और है और आप बस वहां पे पोजीशन हो उस कॉन्वर्सेशन में. It is absolutely okay to listen, because somebody has to listen in a group of 10 people, right? सभी बात करेंगे तो फिर कैसा होगा?
Right.
And trust me, everybody loves a good listener, because आज के time
I can vouch for that.
everybody loves a good listener. Like sometimes, like for example, and maybe this is a slightly different example, but my wife sometimes shares a ton of things, and they could be rants, they could be complaints, they could be so many things. The thing that she's looking for is not for me to give her a solution. But the thing is for me to just listen to what she's trying to say, and I can tell you it is priceless playing that role of just being quiet, which is what I would love to do anyway. But in that circumstance also, it is absolutely okay to be quiet. So when you're in let's say you're called in a networking event,
I was smiling extra because मुझे लगता नहीं है कि ऐसे कोई भी शादीशुदा मेल्स होंगे जो इस बात से डिसएग्री करेंगे. We have all heard this at some point कि भाई बस सुन लो, सिर्फ कुछ बोलने की जरूरत नहीं है.
बिल्कुल. और आपके पास अगर even if you're not married, to our viewers, even if you have a partner or somebody that who you are, you have a girlfriend or a boyfriend, this example is valid for them also. And I can tell you this, that sometimes you just need somebody to listen to you. And it's incredible कि कितना respect आपको मिलता है उसके बाद. लोग, I've heard the quietest people, and लोग बोलते हैं कि कितना अच्छा आदमी है, and I think to myself, अरे उसने 4 शब्द नहीं बोले, and you've already made that mind up. So it's very strange. So any of the introverts listening on to this one, it's absolutely okay to listen. Okay. Now for all those introverts, right, like I would say that if you're suddenly thrown into, let's say you've been thrown into an event which you are completely not prepared for, and let's say you've got like a week to get into something like that, right? And what you want to make sure is that you want to do a proper, आप अपने तरफ से पूरी तैयारी कीजिए, भले आप maybe you will not speak a word, maybe you will not bond, over drinks and cocktail and dinner and all that stuff. So वो तो बात की बात है, but पहले उस event के बारे में research करना बहुत जरूरी है. You have to make sure that you are, understanding what is the theme, what is the event, who all are going to be there, all of that, right? And so you have to understand the audience, you have to understand the topics that could be discussed. I would always suggest that when you are in these kind of networking forums, avoid political and avoid religious topics, because these are sensitive times we live in anyway, and you want to make sure that people, लोग आपके बारे में एक neutral but positive view रखें,
right.
And you want to make sure that जो भी topics आप discuss कर रहे हो वो theme से related topics ही हो. Personal conversations, obviously, it depends on to what length you want to do it, but introverts usually don't reveal a lot about their personal life. I feel that sometimes they're more comfortable talking about the subject and the domain, and so if that is how the flavor is, keep it that way. आप theme के बारे में research कीजिए, audience के बारे में research कीजिए, आप audience के profiles, अगर जो भी जैसे panel of experts अगर हो और आपको उनसे मिलना हो networking करने के लिए, learn about them. जैसे Manu, for example, summarized my background. I'm pretty sure Manu also researched about what I've done, and I would do the same, because that's the hallmark of someone who really wants to understand the background of the people that they want to network with. आप किसी भी talk show host को अगर देखेंगे, the really good ones, वो बहुत अच्छा research करते हैं अपने इसको, whoever is the whoever comes in for those shows to talk, you do that. So I think that's really important. Sometimes you may hesitate to go on your own in these networking events because you don't know what to do. So it's okay at that time कि अगर आपके पास कोई बहुत ही chilled out सा एक extrovert सा दोस्त है आपके साथ, somebody in your office or someone who you can tag along with. Who will make you feel comfortable, and maybe that person is like a conversation starter, and you can tag along dhire dhire se as you start feeling comfortable with it, because sometimes just opening up becomes a problem. So it's okay to have that cool friend who's absolutely like gives you like good vibes and can be the life of a place, but make sure that you are also learning along the way when that person is helping you network and all of that. So you need a partner at times, so you can carry that partner along, if you want. And I think as an introvert, it is anyway a very difficult situation for you to go there and network. So make sure that the questions you ask are simple questions. ऐसा ना हो कि आपने कुछ बहुत ही complicated सवाल पूछ लिया, ठीक है, और सामने वाले को मतलब स्ट्रेस सा हो गया कि मैं इस क्वेश्चन का जवाब कैसे दूं. And no matter how famous or how important that person is, if you ask that person a tough question, because that guy's also come here to chill, like he's just come here to network with people, have warm, light conversation. So keep your questions also absolutely light and easy, because then the other person will also ask you questions that are light and easy. So काफी आपका relationship जो initial जो barrier है वो उसमें काफी सारा कुछ उसमें break हो जाता है. So I think these 3-4 things I feel would be helpful for an introvert to start.
Again, I think there was a wealth of knowledge in that answer. मतलब इतनी सारी बातें आपने बताई हैं जो बहुत यूजफुल है. I want to quickly summarize it for our viewers, because जैसे देखिए, एक तो उन्होंने बोला कि तैयारी कीजिए इवेंट में जाने के पहले. अगर आप इंट्रोवर्टेड हैं और आप नेचुरली फील नहीं करते हैं इंक्लाइंड ऐसी जगह जाने में, तैयारी कीजिए. पॉलिटिकल और कंट्रोवर्शियल टॉपिक्स जैसे पॉलिटिकल होते हैं या रिलीजियस होते हैं, उनसे दूर रहिए. Get a friend along. I mean, I never thought about that कि मतलब ये भी possible है, but absolutely possible है. Participate, but get someone who makes you comfortable there. So these are some great suggestions. जो keep your question simple. I think these are great suggestions, Satya, that I think our viewers will find
You
very
know,
useful.
the one thing that I remember, and the reason
Mhm.
why I thought of the cool extrovert friend was, जब मैं flying करता था ना मनु, तो
हाँ.
I was based out of Indore,
Okay.
and there was a period of 6 months when I was a wedding crasher. Uh, and if anybody, I don't know if they would have seen my face yet or not, but वो 6 महीने मैं इसलिए wedding crash करता था क्योंकि वहाँ के पोहे और all the wonderful sweets that I would get to have, I would never get to. So the thing
Right.
was, because I was an introvert, I lacked in confidence walking in with a straight face, and I would always carry this extremely cool extrovert, good-looking guy with me.
Okay.
And he and I would walk in, mingle with the guests, talk to them. And he actually showed me that you can actually get into an event uninvited, nobody will even know, and you would create a lasting impression, so much so that the groom or the bride's family would say, fir aana, next time agar aa rahe ho to, and we would walk out with our tummies full. And so, I always, that to me was like the first instance where I felt ki, any event where you feel you're nervous or you don't feel confident about it, bring along that really smart dude who you can piggyback with and help you go through that. So yeah, just suddenly struck me out of nowhere, but that's how my adventure began with this cool extrovert friend.
Yeah, I think ये एकदम brilliant application है of something that मुझे लगता है ऐसे बहुत लोगों ने experience किया होगा कि किसी दोस्त को ले जाने से चीजें आसान हो जाती हैं, और दोस्त वो ऐसे ही ले जाते हैं जो थोड़ा extroverted हो, but like I love the way you applied it to networking because it is totally applicable there. So I want to come to LinkedIn. आजकल मेरे पर्सनल एक्सपीरियंस में मैंने पिछले 10-12 साल में अपने करियर में देखा है कि LinkedIn is obviously emerging as the professional networking place. हमने बहुत सारे व्यूअर से बात भी करी, and they also gave us that sense that LinkedIn is the place जहाँ पर सबसे ज्यादा लोग नेटवर्क करते हैं. तो I would love to hear some again suggestions from you about LinkedIn पे नेटवर्किंग के लिए क्या को कैसे इफेक्टिव बनाए, क्या कर सकते हैं LinkedIn पे?
See, when I remember जब मैंने LinkedIn use करना शुरू किया था, it was somewhere in 2006. It just about started, and a lot of us working professionals at the time, frankly, हमें समझ में नहीं आया कि ये टूल हम किसके लिए यूज करें. क्या ये इससे नौकरी मिल सकती है, क्या इससे मतलब do you just look at fancy profiles and feel अरे यार मेरा LinkedIn profile ऐसा होना चाहिए? We were all quite confused, honestly. At least I was. But I quickly understood after like a couple of years that ये LinkedIn actually एक image आपके लिए create कर लेगा for you. It does it for you. And the image it creates this personality or a persona which can actually show you as somebody who over a period of time can be influential, reliable, credible, all those things. Now, whether you want to use that to sell something, whether you want to get yourself a job, or whether you want to find somebody who's like-minded, shared interests, brainstorm ideas, all of that stuff. ये 2-3 चीजें हैं जिसका main purpose है. But again, my experience with LinkedIn is that way back, I thought it was a job site and I would just send a CV.
Right.
But nothing would come out of it. The best way to use LinkedIn is that the fundamental reason is to build relationships.
Right.
Fundamental reason is to introduce people to people or introduce yourself to people. And of course, today it is a website that is used for bragging about a ton of things. Whether how good a company is doing, or we're a great place to work, or listen, our revenues, we're a unicorn, we're this, we're that. So abhi wo ek alag, it has taken shape in a different way, but generally the best way to use LinkedIn would be to understand people that are within your domain. आप वो देख सकते हो कि मेरे similar area में और कौन से लोग हैं जिसके साथ I can become better. Or is there a job you can follow a particular company to understand how they are moving along in the industry. और
Right.
अगर वहां पे अगर आप रोल्स देखेंगे, करियर्स देखेंगे, आपको समझ में आएगा कि ये बिल्कुल फिट बैठता है कि नहीं बैठता है. Or you can just learn from people. You can pick out, you can, and it's incredible. Like you can just ping somebody and say, you know what, I see you have this experience in these areas. Because LinkedIn में not just your experience, but आपके skills, certifications, बहुत सारी चीजें होती हैं जिनके बारे में maybe you have interest. You can also schedule meetups, between your LinkedIn contacts and network, and do like a mini sort of a get together of people to understand. So वो platform इतना powerful है कि you can leverage it to the best of your ability. But don't, my strongest recommendation would be, don't look at it as a means to get something out immediately. Spend a lot of time on LinkedIn to understand the background, experience, and the value of those people in that platform. Spend a little bit of time trying to know people. Don't go with the ulterior motive कि मैं इससे network इसलिए कर रहा हूँ क्योंकि मुझे कुछ बेचना है. Because अगर मुझे कोई आके ऐसा कुछ करेगा ना, like for me, I will feel as though there is, like, you've just come to meet me because you want to sell something.
Right.
Today's essence of networking is what is in it for both people and not what is in it for me. So on LinkedIn, if you're meeting somebody, you should have a takeaway, but you should also be courteous enough, to give away. And it's a great tool to recognize people also. आप एक दूसरे को thank you बोल सकते हो. You can tell each other what a great job you've done. Small things like that, which give you global recognition.
Sure.
So I would say these are the few things that you can definitely leverage LinkedIn for.
And मुझे बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग लगा और अच्छा लगा कि जैसे आपने बोला कि सिर्फ कुछ हासिल करने के लिए ही यूज नहीं करो, to use it to connect people. And then the other thing जो मैंने बहुत ज्यादा एक्सपीरियंस करी है और मैंने बहुत लोगों से सुना भी है, and it has stayed with me, is कि भाई ये सोचना कि सामने वाले को भी इस इंटरेक्शन से कुछ मिलना चाहिए. अगर उस पर्पस से, उस दिमाग से आप इंटरेक्शन करेंगे तो मेरे एक्सपीरियंस में तो आगे से रिस्पॉन्स भी बहुत बेटर आते हैं. सो थैंक यू फॉर दोस सजेशंस. So I think this has been very enlightening discussion about the topic of networking, and I'm very sure कि viewers को बहुत अच्छी बातें सीखने को मिली हैं. पर जाने के पहले मैं आपसे एक चीज पूछना चाहता हूँ कि what has been your most embarrassing networking moment? And I know that I've personally seen you being very good in those situations, but ऐसा कोई moment जब where you were just caught off guard?
Oh yeah, I mean, ऐसे तो कई सारे moments हैं, but one I remember distinctly is there was a fireside chat, that a company that I was working in had organized, and inviting the guests happens to be somebody else's responsibility, and I was the MC for that event. और हुआ ये कि वो 6 लोगों के बारे में, of course, being the MC, I had to make sure कि मैं research अच्छे से करूँ. So I had done that research. I had like cue cards with all of that, the information that I needed. And of course, when you're inviting the guests over, I would kind of shake hands with them, call out their name, so for example, welcome Manu to the stage and all of that stuff. So I did all of that, and all of us sitting, and then it was my time to read out introductions of people, only to realize that 2 or 3 of them who were there in the audience were not the same guys that were there on my cue cards. और मुझे वो तब तक, and मैं confidently मतलब introduce कर रहा हूँ कि ये इस college से ने graduate किया है, यहाँ पे काम किया है, and I was just going on with my I couldn't stop talking about them. And then when the time came for the individual people to talk, I think not me but everybody in the group realized that those 2 people were not them at all. And imagine my face was like flushed red because I just didn't know where to look, and it was I didn't know whether to say thank you or sorry, because thank you because he didn't rip me apart. He was very kind, and all of them who were there, like, very kind in saying that there was a last minute change, and sorry, that person was supposed to come but I couldn't. So it was a good it was a very strange experience. But in that also there is a lesson, for a lot of people who are networking. You should always be prepared for last minute things like this, because any event, any networking event will go through that. Forget a networking event, when you have a meeting and you're in a conference room, कितने बार हमने देखा है कि IT support या कुछ phone या कुछ कभी कभी काम नहीं करता है last minute में, right? So
सही बात है.
any forum where you're having people coming together, there is always a likelihood that some things could change. So have a plan. I don't know if it's a plan B, but I always like to have a plan B and plan A and stick with it. But make sure that you're well prepared for any calamity that tends to happen. For me, that was like the biggest takeaway. But what an experience! Like I made sure that उसके बाद मैं ऑर्गेनाइजर से 5 बार पूछूं कि यही लोग है ना कि और कोई लोग तो नहीं है. So that's
life lesson मिल गया. And I mean, I would not want to be in that situation. So anyway, this is all we had for you, Satya. I think this was such an enlightening discussion. I'm sure कि viewers को बहुत सारे takeaways मिले होंगे. मैं तो अगर ध्यान से देखेंगे तो कम से कम 10 ऐसी चीजें मिली होंगी जो वो implement कर सकते हैं. But before I end, I just want, this is just for our viewers, that जब आप उस networking event में हो, जब आप उस इंसान के सामने हो जिससे आप बात करना चाह रहे हैं, and आप उससे कहेंगे क्या? अगर आप ये जानना चाहते हैं कि how to develop that message, how to have that short impactful message when you are in a situation like that, तो आप please इसमें हमारी series का पहला episode देखिए, which is about how to develop your elevator story. So that's a quick plug for that, because it seems very relevant कि बोलना क्या है. But yeah, again, I want to thank you, Satya, for being here and for giving us your time, and it was extremely insightful. And bye to our viewers, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye. Thanks, Manu.